This one will sting for sure.
Definitely, but that just shows you just how very difficult it is to beat her. I mean, she's getting to the finals so consistently. She's not going anywhere. She is still the player to beat, in my opinion.
Aryna Sabalenka has officially withdrawn from the Qatar Open, and she's far from the only one. Big names are dropping out of this tournament at a rapid pace, and the whole event is starting to look shaky before the first ball is even hit. The world #1, fresh off a runner-up finish at the Australian Open, has decided that rest is more important than defending points in Doha. Now the entire draw is scrambling, and everyone is wondering what comes next. So let's break down why so many players are walking away from this tournament and what it could mean for the rest of the season. Before we dive in, leave a comment and tell me what you think. Are these players pulling out because they're genuinely injured, or are they simply choosing which tournaments are worth their time and energy? Aryna Sabalenka's withdrawal from the Qatar Open is a major headline, especially since she won this tournament back in 2020. But the bigger story is that she's just one name on a very long list. This event is being hit hard by withdrawals from top players, and it raises serious questions about what's happening in Doha that's making so many players step away. Sabalenka says her decision comes down to rest after the Australian Open. She reached the final and faced Elena Rybakina, losing in a match that was tough both mentally and physically. She still earned over £1 million for making the final, which is nothing to complain about. But she also left Melbourne drained and in need of real recovery. Instead of jumping straight into another event, she's choosing to pause and return at the Dubai Championships. On the surface, that sounds perfectly reasonable. Athletes need recovery time, especially after a deep run at a Grand Slam. Here's where things get more interesting. Sabalenka isn't actually defending many ranking points at the Qatar Open this year. Yes, she won it in 2020, but her results there since then haven't been impressive. From a strategic point of view, skipping Doha makes sense. Why push your body through a tournament that won't help your ranking much when you can rest and be ready for events that really matter? But Sabalenka is only part of the story. The Qatar Open has been hit by withdrawals across the board. Iga Swiatek is now the top seed because the original top seed pulled out. World #6 Jessica Pegula withdrew. Naomi Osaka skipped the entire Middle East swing. Madison Keys is out. Barbora Krejcikova is out. The injury list keeps growing, with players like Marketa Vondrousova stepping away to recover. French Open contender Leylah Fernandez hasn't even started her season yet. At this point, you really have to ask what's left of this tournament. The organizers are filling main draw spots with players who were originally meant to go through qualifying. Alexandra Alexandrova, Emiliana Arango, Daria Kasatkina, Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, and Cristina Bucsa have all been moved directly into the main draw because so many top players pulled out. That's not how a premier WTA event is supposed to function. You shouldn't be scrambling to fill main draw spots because half your seeded players decided they'd rather be somewhere else. This isn't a small 250-level event. It's meant to be one of the headline tournaments on the Middle East swing, and instead, it's starting to look like a B-team showcase. Now let's talk about Sabalenka's mindset after the Australian Open, because she was unusually open about it. In her post-match press conference after losing to Rybakina, she didn't sugarcoat anything. She admitted that Rybakina played an excellent match and that she tried her best, but it simply wasn't enough. She said she had chances and felt she missed a couple, but that's tennis. One day you lose, the next day you win. Then she added something that really stood out. She said, "Hopefully I'll be more of a winner this season than a loser. Hoping right now and praying." That's about as honest as it gets. Instead of the usual confident champion talk, this sounded like someone who had just had her heart broken in a Grand Slam final and was still processing it. When asked about reviewing her Australian Open performance with her team, Sabalenka was even more revealing. She said she wasn't sure when she'd be ready to watch it back, and joked with her agent, saying, "Maybe in a week or maybe in a few days, whenever I feel like I can move on from this one." She described herself as laughing and crying at the same time, calling it a hysterical moment that wasn't very productive. She was just letting everything out. She admitted she was frustrated with herself because once again she had opportunities. She felt she played great tennis up to a certain point, but couldn't handle the pressure and aggression Rybakina brought. Then she caught herself and said overall she actually played very well in Australia, including the final. She did her best, and that day, Rybakina was simply the better player.
Feels like a missed couple, but I mean, it's tennis, you know. Today you loser, tomorrow you winner, so hopefully I'll be more of a winner this season than a loser, so.
One quote really shows the mental side of elite sports. Sabalenka said, "We'll speak with the team now. They try to avoid me because it's not really healthy to be around me right now." That's serious self-awareness. She knows she's in a bad headspace and is warning everyone to keep their distance because she's not ready to be around people. That level of honesty is rare in professional tennis. Most players give the usual lines about learning lessons and coming back stronger. Sabalenka openly admitted she was crying, laughing uncontrollably, and that her own team was avoiding her. That's real life after losing a Grand Slam final following 2 exhausting weeks of competition. Seen through that lens, her withdrawal from Qatar makes even more sense. She's emotionally drained and physically worn out. She needs time to process what happened in Melbourne and reset before competing again. Jumping straight into another tournament while in that mental state would be a disaster waiting to happen. But here's where some people raise an eyebrow. Isn't it interesting that she's skipping a tournament where she isn't defending major points and hasn't had strong results recently? If this were Indian Wells, Miami, or another event where she had a lot on the line, would she still take this mental health break, or would she push through? That's not to say she's making anything up. Burnout and mental exhaustion are very real, but it's also true that players are becoming more selective. The schedule is packed. No one can play everything. Players choose tournaments based on ranking points, prize money, sponsors, and long-term goals. Everything else becomes optional. Right now, the Qatar Open clearly sits in that optional category for many players. The timing doesn't help. It comes right after the Australian Open, requires long travel to the Middle East, and sits just before Dubai, which is a bigger and more prestigious event. It's easy to see why Doha is getting skipped this year. What makes this even more surprising is that Sabalenka won this tournament in 2020. She made her debut in Doha and immediately lifted the trophy. You'd think that might create some sense of loyalty, but winning a tournament 6 years ago doesn't mean you owe it your body and mind forever. When you're exhausted, rest comes first. The tournament organizers must be panicking. Tickets were sold and promotions were built around the big names in women's tennis. Now their top seed only holds that spot because everyone else withdrew. The draw is filled with players casual fans barely recognize. The big matchups everyone hoped for simply aren't going to happen. From a fan's point of view, that's incredibly frustrating. You buy tickets months in advance, expecting to see Sabalenka, Pegula, Osaka, and other stars. Then one by one they pull out, and the event suddenly feels more like a challenger tournament than a premier WTA competition. Some fans would understandably want refunds. From the player's perspective, especially someone like Sabalenka, skipping one tournament to protect long-term health makes sense. If she forced herself to play in Doha while still mentally drained from Melbourne, she'd likely lose early and feel even worse. This situation highlights a bigger issue with the WTA calendar. Too many big events are packed in a short window. Players are expected to perform at a high level for almost 11 months of the year. The off-season barely allows for physical recovery, let alone mental rest. So players are forced to choose, and tournaments like Qatar end up being sacrificed. Iga Swiatek stepping in as the new top seed is interesting. She's the world number 2 and one of the most dominant players on tour right now. With Sabalenka and many other stars out, her path to the title looks much clearer. She has to see this draw as a golden opportunity to collect ranking points and prize money. Still, it feels a bit hollow. Winning a title because everyone else withdrew isn't the same as beating the best players head-to-head. You get the trophy and the points, but there's always an asterisk in people's minds. Swiatek won Qatar, but Sabalenka, Pegula, and Osaka weren't there. For the rising players moved into the main draw, this is a huge opportunity. Alexandra Alexandrova, Daria Kostachina, and Cristina Bucsa now have a chance they might not have earned through qualifying. A deep run in a premier event, even one weakened by withdrawals, can change rankings, confidence, and entire careers. That's the upside of the chaos. While the tournament loses star power, it gains unpredictability. When the favorites don't show up, someone else gets their moment. That's the beauty of sports. Sabalenka plans to rest and return at the Dubai Championships. Dubai carries more prestige and money. It's a WTA 1000 event compared to Qatar's 500 level. Once again, the strategy is clear. Skip the smaller event and be ready for the bigger one. She's not avoiding the Middle East entirely, just choosing where to spend her energy. Dubai will likely be packed with top players. The prize money and appearance fees are high enough that players show up even when tired. That's the reality of professional tennis. If the money is big, players find the energy. If it's not, rest suddenly becomes a priority. This whole situation shows the gap between fan expectations and player needs. Fans want to see the best players compete everywhere. Players want long careers, good health, and success in the tournaments that matter most. Those goals don't always line up. If the WTA doesn't make the calendar more player-friendly, this will keep happening. Tournaments will continue to be weakened by withdrawals. The options are clear. Spread events out more, reduce mandatory tournaments, or raise prize money across the board. Until then, situations like Qatar will keep coming up. A tournament with huge potential ends up feeling like a shell of what it should be. Sabalenka's withdrawal is just the latest example, and definitely not the last. So that's where we are. Aryna Sabalenka pulled out of the Qatar Open, along with many other top players, and now the tournament is wide open for whoever actually shows up. If you think this keeps happening unless the WTA fixes the calendar, hit like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments if you'd still buy tickets to a tournament knowing half the stars might pull out at the last minute.